Hey, everybody. Peace, family. I'm your host, Aseer the Duke of Tears, along with my co-host, Selena Empress of 10,000 Years. Amor will drop the women, will stay in the bathtub as we get ready to go to bed. And my brother, Saga Assad. Big up to everybody on this great and beautiful Labrador Day. People know it as Labor Day, but the old Jews used to celebrate a holiday on this day called Labrador Day. For people that don't know, a labyrinth is an axe. A magical, so-called magical axe that was used in a lot of rituals that they used to do, which is another arcane or old-school form of magic that they used to practice called axiomancy. Those people that didn't know. And as well as everybody else, God forbid, who has lost somebody this week or last week or yesterday or tomorrow or whatever, we just want to say bless the dead and peace in your transference, and know that we'll definitely all see each other again as we get closer to these astrological times and movements. We want to keep it real and not get too caught up in the doomsaying and shit. And we want to be real with the fact that we are definitely the age, or our generation was definitely the generation. Let's say, when I say our generation, I'm talking about the hip-hop generation. Our generation was the generation that basically resurrected black consciousness to a certain degree through the music, at least between, let's say 79 and 1997, After that, it was pretty much a foregone conclusion that the military application for the music was set up. But it doesn't mean that the instance and what we initially set the whole game up for is not still relevant. So regardless of what the powers that be still they're doing with the music and with the energy, there's still our ancestral forces above them that's making them think that they got the handle on the pot, when really we're cooking the meal. You know what I'm saying? So we definitely don't want to give any power to people who already feel that they have it all, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, just because you feel something a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that everybody has that same feeling. So we always need to call into account that our situation and our experiences, even though they are individual, the collective aspect of them is something that we are all sharing, and that we are all moving further into past the point of no return. So, there's a lot of people talking about, what we kind of built on last Friday, as well as some other things, which is great, because the more of us that are giving perspectives on this great celestial party that we in is great, because that means that more and more people are paying attention to the unseen and applying that knowledge to their everyday life, which then opens up the universal sphere for a lot of us all to build and at least know what the hell we are talking about. But just like that's going on, there'll be a lot of disinformation going on about it too. So, you okay? Okay. So one of the biggest things about it, keep this in here and watch that. One of the biggest things that you'll hear is that you're going to have some people who basically say it's a bunch of aliens due to the fact that they're talking about melanin, but when you read the Popol Vuh about the Heru twins and all of that, you would read that it's actually like a cluster of energy moving this way. Now, back in the days, the Tawankan, a.k.a. what we today call the Jaguar people, or the people of the Jaguar, also known as the Big Buffalo people, also known as the original Aboriginal man and original woman of North Central South America. When we saw it coming back in the days, we referred to it as nephews. 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 So as nephews is the little orbited things that are allegedly floating around the so-called comet, if you want to call it that. Me personally, I'm not convinced that it's a comet. I personally feel it's a blue dwarf. You know, some of the disinformation out there is that it's a brown dwarf, but no, I don't feel it's that, because some of the radical changes that have been going on in the planet would be a bit more effectuated based upon the intensity of what brown dwarfs basically do and wreak havoc upon, you know, any given ecosystem that it passes through. Blue dwarf is a little different, though. The blue is the initiating, the activating energy. For those quote-unquote Masons in the house, blue is the color for faithfulness. Blue is also the color of innocence, which is why they call the lodges that they don't really inform and give people the real knowledge in. They call those blue lodges, because the blue means innocence, which is another aspect of non-active innocence is gullibility. So they refer to these guys as blue lodges, or keep in the blue, because really they just use them as a financial power base for them to do their thing. So it's not really about, let's say, the knowledge per se, or raising up esoterically, you know. So when we speak about, you know, this thing coming through, it's definitely a mass of energy, if anything. You understand? And based on this surge of energy, a lot of us are feeling the effects of it coming closer. A lot of us will be feeling it a lot more. Now is the time, though, also for those of us who are psychically inclined to this, to start to begin to monitor yourself. Start to monitor your thoughts and your feelings right now, because right now a lot is being downloaded to you. Those people who are considering themselves empaths or sensitive or mediums in that sense, you need to be paying a lot attention to your dreams, to how you're feeling in a given day. Also, when you do your meditations and things like that, I was building with a brother today, big up on him, big up to him and his family, and we were talking about some of the psychic abilities and powers that will be manifested within us and are manifesting within us now. But in the process of that, we have to be aware that these things are also being monitored by the enemy. So you got to do the knowledge. Like if you ever go through a meditation, and then as you're in the meditation, you start hearing helicopters and shit around you or above your crib, all out of the blue, from nowhere. Do the knowledge to that. Come out of the meditation, stop it, see if the helicopter go away. If you start the meditation again and you hear the helicopter again, then you got to accept the fact that you are being monitored. A lot of us are being monitored through a system that they've created that is based on old school Keynesian technology. There was a thing in ancient Kemet, pre-dynastic Kemet, in Tomowankan Kemet, because the Tomowankan people in Kemet were referred to as the Tamaray. Tamaray was reminiscent of the people that were connected to the original people already over here. Memphis over there is named after the Memphis over here. So when you're reading about Memphis over there in Kemet, you're reading about Memphis here in America. When you're reading about the El Armana dynasty, half of the dominion of the El Armana dynasty was down here, was over here, specifically in areas like the Grand Canyon, which is why most American people are forbidden to go into some of the recesses of the Grand Canyon, because you would see too much Keynesian and big black faces that they weren't able to throw into the ocean, which was the policy of the Smithsonian Institute. All of the artifacts that they could not recreate and put European or phenotypical Caucasian faces on them, the ones that they didn't lock away in Warehouse 13, they was able to just dump over the edge in the ocean. This has been documented. You can go online and Google it. Smithsonian dumps rare artifacts in the ocean. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So you got to remember that everything that these people are doing is based upon how they have oriented everyone's consciousness. Now, in Masonry, you hear the term the Grand Orient or the Orient or Lord of the Orient or the Master of the Orient or the Grand Orient. Orient, or the Grand Orient, is basically about how they have oriented the world's consciousness to accept the antithesis of reality, which is this fictitious reality. So if you don't think that everybody's consciousness has been oriented a certain way, all you got to do is look at a map in any textbook in the United States. And when you look at that map, that world map, you're going to see a regular map, right, in which Alaska's at the top of the map, basically, and Florida's at the bottom. But that is a lie, because when you look at the Earth from space or from any other, let's say, bird's eye view, it is the exact opposite. The south is at the top, the north is at the bottom. So therefore, they have oriented everyone's consciousness to believe that the way that they are looking at a map is the proper way, knowing damn well in NASA and everything else, when they are doing cartography, maps and stuff like that, those maps are oriented the right way. Therefore, all of those people who call themselves Masters of the Orient, meaning a.k.a. Masons or whatever, will put themselves in that position, meaning that they are basically there to help reorient your consciousness into a fictitious thought pattern. And the secret is how they have been able to keep this like this perpetually for the past, let's say, 350 years. Some people say 6,000 years, but it took about 5,900 some odd years for these people to get to the point that they at now. So really, it's only really been the past 350 years that they've actually been able to rise to the level in which they are poised to destroy or try to destroy everything. Okay? So therefore, like I said, the consciousness that is oriented is the opposite. So once you understand that and the ramifications of this, you have to then start look at all of the other things that have been reoriented in your life to make you believe a fictitious history that does not exist. Case in point, the United States being a republic. They always want to talk about how much they hated the Articles of Confederation, but they never tell you why. They always tell you that they were, brought over here in 1666, but they want to make it seem like that gives them right to still be overlords of the land. But we have had successive waves. Them being here for over 100 some odd years is nothing. You understand? But what they need to do is reorient your consciousness to make you believe that you do not have a place here, or that you do not have a place anywhere on the planet. And anywhere on the planet you go, you will see, whenever you're dealing with the original peoples, they are being forced out of their land, they are being attacked, they are being preyed upon by law enforcement, they're being preyed upon by their own people in their community who are apathetic, who have had their consciousness so disoriented that they hate everything about themselves and you. Therefore, you become their enemy, and now they're doing the devil's work for them. This is all dependent upon that 32nd degree, of which they cannot rise or surpass from. For instance, this so-called cosmic aspect is, as they're talking about it now, 32 million miles away. That's a very interesting number for this thing to be at. But see, that 32 degrees in which things freeze at is also synonymous to the aspect of this reality in which the fact that these people are limited and are frozen at that 32nd degree, which is why they can't get any further. So in order for them to reach the 33rd degree, they have to go through a ritual sacrifice in which they sacrifice somebody who has the ability to get to the 33rd, and then that's when they are seen as enlightened. Understand? So the so-called masonry that people are practicing now is totally different than the one that was practiced in ancient pre-dynastic Kemet. And is drastically different from the civilizing aspect of the masonry that we gave these Caucasoids when they were running them across the hot Arabian desert into the caves of West Asia. Okay? So this thing that's coming through, whether you want to call it the blue Kachina, whether you want to call it planet, whatever you want to call it, it's a heralding energy. It's an energy that is coming forth to alert and make people aware of the divine changes that are happening within them. Yet everything in this society is based on fear, and that fear is there to raise the levels of plasma in the blood that makes the blood sweeter for these people to focus in on, and then makes it easier for them to basically feed. So specifically, we're at an auspicious time in which the more you lay down and face what it is you fear, the more you are able to actualize what it is you really want to experience in your life. The more you push through the fears in your life, the more you push through the people and the barriers that have set themselves up to be that in your life. You have to understand, a lot of times before you incarnate here, you and maybe even some of the people that you would consider enemies or people who are not your friends, you were basically mad cool on the other side. But maybe when you were coming and incarnating here, you decided that you wanted to learn what it would be like to be a true friend. And then this other person, this other soul may say, well, I want to see what it would be like to understand the deepest aspects of friendship. So that's the intent and the purpose that you, let's say, incarnate for. But how and when you incarnate, that purpose is forgotten and taken out of the prefrontal lobe and put into the back of the subconscious, superconscious. So it takes you basically the rest of your life to realize and remember what the purpose was, what you tended to learn. But see, because you're not necessarily as specific as we are in that realm, you're not specifically asking how you want to learn the experience. So maybe in order to teach for this soul, for you to learn what it's like to be a good friend, this soul that incarnates with you to teach you that maybe has to betray you. You see what I'm saying? So that way maybe you can look at what this person is and then figure out, oh, this is not a good friend. So in that essence then, that person who is then your antagonist in your story is actually there to help you and is actually giving you what you want. It's just not in the realm that you would like due to the fact that specificness is not necessarily a paramount in the higher dimensions because everything is specific unto itself. So there is no waiting for something. You think of an apple, the apple is there. You pull that apple, another apple appears. There's no lag time in waiting for shit. That's why physical existence on that level, in that realm, in such a degree, is so powerful. Don't put the metal in your mouth, all right? Specifically, that's, kind of how it rises or it crescendos to. So, as all of these things become are they even hearing me? I may not even be on here. Can you check in it? There it is. Can everybody hear me? Everybody can hear me, right? Okay, cool. Just making sure. So specifically speaking, these things as they redound on themselves, whatever we are non-physically, physically has to manifest. So because we are in a specific time frame in which we are about to meet our etheric self, your etheric self is showing up on a physical, non-physical level in the form of this giant, let's say, celestial apparition that's traveling through this, into the solar system, right? But the thing is, it's been coming for a very long time. They're just talking about it now, though. And that is the problem with these people. When this astronomical effects of this thing start coming through, your government, not your government, but the government and governments in the world are going to start to procure basically a tagline story. They're going to use the astronomical events as a means to couch what their true agenda is. And that agenda basically is to plunge the world into some sort of nuclear holocaust. Now, you remember in the 80s, this was a big thing. In the 80s, it seemed like at any minute, you know what I mean, they was going to drop the bomb on shit. You know what I mean? That, again, is to perpetuate the fear dynamic. But more than that now, being that they have now been practicing a form of time manipulation in trying to regress society back to the time of World War II. Case in point, how do they do this? They do this through entertainment. There's always genres of movies that come within specific time periods to basically get people engendered towards a certain thing. So you remember back in the days when they came out with all of the mob movies. All of the mob movies came out when they were basically dismantling. All of the mob movies came out when they started dismantling the Italian mobs to make room for the Ukrainian mob, the Russian mob, and the Eastern European mobs that they were bringing in after the fall of the Russian Republic, after the fall of the Russian communist state. During the reorganization of that, that's when they had to get rid of the so-called Guineas and then started bringing in the Ruskies. Because remember, the Ruskies now are all underworld employees of CIA, who is now using them as a means to come in and redistribute and basically kick the whole white slavery thing into overdrive. You know what I'm saying? Which is what they're doing now. So you have to notice whenever you have a mass neighborhood that's targeted for gentrification, one of the first things that you'll notice during the process of gentrification is that you'll start to see a lot of missing signs for a lot of missing dogs and cats. Then you'll start to see signs of missing elderly people and then missing children. And these signs will be all over the street lamps and stuff like that or whatever. But then for people of interest that they get into the thing, this is when they'll put the wanted posters up in the train station now. This is exactly the way that they used to do things back in the days when they used to have what they call the homesteader or the settlers. For those people that don't remember history in that way, the whole immigration thing, the whole setting up the Statue of Liberty to bring these people over here was to cut black people, original black people, autochthonous black people, indigenous black people out of the inheritance that was supposed to be given back to them post-Reconstruction. That didn't happen. Instead, what they wanted to do was further disassociate ourselves from the country by getting us to accept the Negro designation. And then in the process of that, they created what they call Manifest Destiny. As Manifest Destiny was created, what they did was set out all of the European immigrants who were slaves themselves, who were all slaves, okay, and put them in wagons and then said, go west, young man, and claim whatever land that you see from them indigenous people. Kill them, do whatever you need to do, and then after you do that, we'll allow you to become a settler. Now, when you read history books, they write the term settler or the settlers, S-E-T-T-L-E-R-S. But that word is synonymous to the real word settlors, which is S-E-T-T-L-O-R-S. A settler is somebody who is there to establish a trust, a family trust specifically. So as these people were, quote-unquote, settlers, they were setting up the family trust that would allow them to set up for themselves the businesses that they wind up getting post-Reconstruction. Whereas we, the ones who had all of the jobs and all of the work experience and know how to build up everything or whatever, we were excluded from those so-called jobs. This is when the white labor unions were created. So as these labor unions are created and as they begin to perpetuate pseudo-white supremacy through joblessness, they then had to create other forces to exacerbate the fact that we was creating our own jobs in our own communities, and this became known as the KKK. But what we're saying is that the initial settlers, the people who came in, killed off your ancestors, moved onto their land, and then started paying rent to the United States government, the United States government used them people as settlers to set up a trust called the State of. So the State of became the place in lieu of the word territory. But territory was just put there in lieu of the initial name or the original name of what the original people was calling that place before the so-called settlers got there. So basically what they did was use these people to set up a foreign grantor trust and then cut off those indigenous people who had the initial original ties to the land based on a Republican mandate that we allowed them to have as the federal government was established to repatriate those prisoners of Moorish wars both at home and abroad. This is why when Caucasian people have a business, right, and it's a family business, they'll call it, Rhinestone or Saperstein and Sons or Luigi and Sons or whatever in sons. When black people set up businesses, we don't put sons on anything like that in that. When you do that, some people do, but most people don't. Like we tend to like creative type names. We tend to like name things in a more like abstract way. You know what I'm saying? When we do certain businessful things, unless you incorporate. But then if you incorporate, then you're not even really building on this level like that, because you're doing what they tell you to do. But specifically speaking, when they create businesses based on their heirs, not their children. The term child is like the term kid. It doesn't mean what you think it means. Kid is a baby goat. So when you say that you're with my kid, you're basically saying that I'm with my baby goat, which means that you have a little Baphomet in training is how they like to look at it. A child is a ward of the state. You understand? So children, that's why you can't have a child court, you see what I'm saying? But you can have a family court. But in the family court, the only person in the family that matters to the court is the mother. Because the mother is seen as the bond of the family, and they know if they can get her, then they get the whole family. You see? So a lot of times, situations in society will create situations in which it feels like that's the only option that you have to reconcile your differences. However, it is not. The court has another aegis attached to that called a mediation center that you can go to in the mediation and work out your own agreement, go before the judge and say this is what the agreement is, but we don't want to have nothing to do, let's say, with y'all. And you can use that if you need to, which is totally different than going through the whole arduous family court rape that a lot of us go through, mostly original people. Because, again, in the 5 to 7 years I was going back and forth to family court, the only people I seen in there was original people and so-called people who are original who may not look at themselves as that, like Spanish people. The only other ones you had up in there was Hasidic Jews, right? But they will be up in there just like you see them in the food stamp office and stuff like that, for those people who have ever been on food stamps. And, again, I'm not judging, and I'm saying you can't do that or whatever. I'm just saying in situations, if you're starving and there's no other way for you to get no food, don't let your pride make you starve, all right? Because ain't none of these people who will hold you to task for going and getting that is going to be there to give you money and give you food to feed your family. You got to do what you got to do in your given situation. You know what I'm saying? So in this situation, you have these people who basically set themselves up. They'll be in the we would see in the day when we used to go, I used to go with my mom back in the day, I used to see straight up Jews up in there with fur coats and diamonds and all types of shit, get food stamps and all of that. And the whole family could be there, the man and the woman together. But whenever you see, but you can't be a black man and a black woman in family court together like that. See what I'm saying? Like the husband shit and all of that. Because there's a double standard. And it's okay for you as a melanated person to call that out when you see it. There is a double standard in America, okay? For anybody that's going to tell you that it's not about this and not about that, it's a damn lie. And it's usually people who have already made it, or quote-unquote made it. So, of course, they don't feel anything necessarily wrong because they got their bread. So they like, well, nigga, why don't you get yours? That's the problem with capitalism in Western society. It is not about everybody coming up. It's about a few people coming up and everybody trying to emulate how they came up. It's not about it, because if that was the case, if it was really about everybody coming up, then when you was in school, they would teach you how to start a business instead of how to go get a job, how to create a resume, how to get the job, dress for the job you want. How about teach me how to create something? There used to be trade schools where, like in New York, they used to have a school called Automotive, where if you wanted to learn how to do cars and all that stuff, you could do that. They used to teach you trades. They don't do that no more. They don't do that no more because they want everybody dependent on a system. They want a welfare system. They want everybody to be getting unemployment and shit like that, so that way nobody can really bitch about this programs and stuff that they want to do. They be like, well, hey, I'm paying for it. I'm giving you unemployment, but the thing is the government don't give you nothing. Everything that the government gives you is what you have already given them ancestrally over the years. So everything that could ever have been paid for this government has been paid for. But what these people want you to do is slave yourself out, to slave out the generations to come. They don't give a damn whether you white, black, or any of that. They are using that right now as a means to juxtapose both of these two extreme polarities against each other. You understand? So it has nothing to do with their preference for that. The only reason why they prefer Caucasoid people is because, according to them, you can get books by Fritz Sprigmeyer, you can get books by Edward Bernays, you can get books by Sigmund Freud. They will all tell you the reptilian section of the Caucasoid mind is more aggressive and more developed than everybody else's due to the fact that it lacks melanin, which is supposed to allow the sympathetic nervous system to activate their hypothalamus, but their hypothalamus shuts down in them at 8 years old. This is medical fact. This has nothing to do with whether I like Caucasian people or not or love black people or not. It has nothing to do with that. This is about genetics. So when they tell you that you are genetically all the same and we're all created equal, that is a damn lie. I don't give a damn how equal you want me to be. I will never be equal with somebody who eats babies. I will never be equal with somebody who rapes and kills people. I will never be equal with somebody who decides that they want to use this knowledge to pimp and flip people against themselves, turn people against themselves. I will never be equal with somebody who abuses and beats up children. Like I said, the biggest issue for us is the fact that we have forgotten how to discern what's what, because they put everything in that box on the same level. So the mind equates everything on the same level. So the same way I could be kicking some shit to you about how the hypothalamus and all this shuts down, you can get 10 other crackers on the YouTube who say the opposite. You get anything that you build on, somebody else can come out and try to disprove it and try to say, oh, well, this nigga not saying it. But the energy that they take to disprove you shows you how correct you really are. You understand? Because then it's not about the knowledge, what you kicking. It's not about what you saying. It's about the fact that you saying it. They caught up in the fact that you doing it. So certain people, so like my grandmother left the dead. Grandmother, she died or whatever. The one we talked about on the show at the funeral and all of that. When she was alive, she would call me everything but a child of God, right? Because I wasn't following along her little Easter Star plans or whatever. But long story short, whenever some shit happened and they needed to learn something or hear something about the damn Bible, I'm the first one they call. I'm the very first one. I don't go to church. I don't do none of that. But whenever some shit goes down dealing with the spirit realm or the Bible or some shit, the first person they're calling on the phone is me. Why? Because they know I know what I'm talking about with that, and I'm not as, or I was not as painted as them at the time, because the spark that was setting me in the Bible was different than the spark that set them. Our generation is the last generation to remember what the world was like prior to 9/11. You understand? We are the last generation. We are the last, quote-unquote, real, technically human generation. Man and woman, womb man. We're the last one. The people after us, no. They don't have that luxury. They only know what the TV tell them, what the PlayStation tell them, what this tell them, and that tell them. So they don't really have no real semblance of reality the way that they did. So if I hear a record with a Bill Withers sample in it, I know that this came from Bill Withers. I know where that came from. But nowadays, these kids will hear some shit and think that that's the original record. You see? But that's not necessarily the fault of Western society more than it is the family that you grow up in. Because when we was born, or, you know, when we was coming up, we used to listen to our mother's old records and all that other stuff. That's how we got into hip-hop. So the education, we cannot allow the education of our children and our situation to fall on these people who you know are there to miseducate you. It's like I don't understand black people sometimes. It's like you send your child to the slave master, and then you wonder why you come home as a slave. Like, if you're sending him to school in October, they're going to tell him that Christopher Columbus discovered this place, okay? They're going to lie. They're still creating a Columbus Day parade where you got a bunch of Italians right there in New York or whatever digging this shit up, knowing damn well how many people allegedly died and were killed and whatever. It doesn't matter because he was Italian, so this is a way for us to feel pride in our contribution to America. Your Italian contribution to America was the decimation of millions of people, and I'm supposed to be cool with that. You see what I'm saying? But let us create a Morris Day parade where we celebrating the enslavement and how we created these white people and how we ran them across the hot Arabian desert, and get a bunch of white people and dress up like Moors and shit, and start do a parade where we got ropes around their neck, marching them west. See what will happen. See if you get police protection for that. But the funny thing is, now is the best time to do shit like that because all bets is off. The karmic debt that we were under based upon all the things that happened to us, whatever, was a wrap after 2012. That's why these niggas had to flip this shit in 2001, because they know that now the karma is definitely back on them. But when I say them, I mean those people who are avatars of Western society, therefore are avatars of the so-called malefic entities that are puppeting behind these people. So case in point, you always hear these people talk about aliens and all this other shit, and really, you know, we've been looking. When we hear that term alien, we immediately think, well, not all of us, but a lot of us automatically think of physical beings coming from a higher dimension, coming from a certain dimension in space, and then giving knowledge and shit based on that, right? Who tend to look non-physical or tend to look alien to us physically, but are still in humanoid form, meaning arm, leg, arm, head. When those things are really just a byproduct of the real alien. The real aliens are non-physical. The real malefic entities we're dealing with travel through ultrasonic frequencies or radio waves, carrier waves, algorithms. These are the entities that travel through and are being put through the different aspects of society. Now, back in Kemet, I started to say this before, there was a system of understanding time, which is the inner mind eye, that was referred to the Amsu Heru Pert M Heru. The Amsu Heru Pert M Heru. ASMU HERU PERTEMHERU. The Amsu Pert M Heru is the aspect of understanding how time itself manipulates and folds in on itself. And it also gets into the different ways of understanding how energy and the correspondence of energies manifest through the archetypical form of arm, leg, arm, head, as well as, let's say, the Osar or the Osiris form of man, which is the Sept form of woman. So do you know that these devils got a system called AMSU, AMSU, which stands for the Aerial Monitoring Scanner Unit, or Aerial Monitoring Scanner Unit, something like that. But what it does basically is it's a radio wave transmitter that picks up on higher consciousness algorithms. So the higher your consciousness, the more they type into the AMSU, is what they call it, their AMSU device computer, which then puts it out. You know what it's like? It's like Cerebro in the X-Men. It's like the Cerebro device in the X-Men. It's a way for them to channel and find out how people are raising their vibration based upon a given area. Because remember, everything in the country is laid out on a grid, on a box form, just like the inside of a circuit. So everything is positioned in that manner. Therefore, when they do scanner waves, they do it block by block. Just like when you have a city block like in New York, every street light is 30 meters in distance to itself. This is because when they want to bring the tanks and everything through, they can monitor the telemetry or the distance it takes them to get a certain place by how many street lamps or light posts are in the given area that they're driving through. This is all a part of social engineering. This is part of the box that they created around the soul to allow us to feel like we're moving in a progressive manner when really we're devolving. The more spiritually bankrupt a society is, the more technologically advanced they are. So that means that the morally or spiritually bankrupt are at a premium in the time frame that we live now. Because spirituality is related to church and religion. You understand? It has nothing to do with discovering enlightenment and becoming one with the self. They want you to become one with all of them, more so than they want you to be unified within yourself. That should tell you something. They always say that there's no I in team, right? And that may be true. We all know how to work together, but the bottom line is we're all born alone. So as much as we're working together, if you can only be at your best when somebody else is around you, then you've already lost, because that means that your best is contingent upon who is in your cipher and who you can feed on to feel better about what it is you can or cannot do. So this thing that's coming through, this astronomical event that's manifesting, they're already going to put their spin on what they're going to say it is. And that's what it's going to be for them. And that's what it's going to be for anybody who believes their version of what's happening. But at the same time, it's not for you or I to contest what it is they want to do to get other people to believe in them, because everybody got their own choice to believe this devil or not. Everybody got their own choice to serve this devil or not. Whether we want to admit it or not, everything in the cosmos is everything else in the cosmos. Therefore, it's not about the macrocosm. The aliens ain't coming from the outside. The aliens are going to come from the inside. That song that you can't stop singing in your mind, that person who you know is fucked up to you, but you just can't let go of them, that family member or family members who every time you come around make you feel like the worst person in the world, and all you want to do is get their approval, that one instance in your life that you could wish that you could take back, but you really can't, you got to be careful. You got to monitor yourself, because you don't know if that's you thinking those things or this thing thinking those things and making you think that you're thinking it. The ego is very susceptible. That is the weakest aspect of the human condition, the ego, man, because that shit will fool you. It'll fool you into thinking that you're it. It'll also can be fooled to thinking that it's itself when really it's being manipulated by this malefic entity that was transferred to you through whatever you was watching or whoever you was having sex with or whatever low-frequency wave they hit you with in your sleep and you waking up with nightmares and all types of shit. Like, everything is up for grabs now, y'all. So, you know, you can't just look at the enemy coming in a form or any one form. It's going to come in multiple forms from multiple directions simultaneously. But if you think it's just thinking that it's going to come through the white man, you're going to lose it when it comes through the black man. When you think it's going to come from the black man, it's going to come from the white man or the Mexican man or whoever else. But regardless of who or how it comes down, again, the original man, the original woman in America, North Central South America, are the most preyed upon people in the entire planet, because we are also preyed upon by our own people. And it's the truth. We have to sometimes learn that indifference is just as powerful as participation. Sometimes I'll be looking at the Facebook shit and I'll see some of the asinine people things right, some of the asinine things that people write, and I'll be compelled. It'd almost be like a fire. It'd be like, oh, I gotta address that. And as soon as I feel like that, I don't. because I know that this FB, again, this Facebook thing is got an ego demon attached to it. I was surfing through it the other day. I saw somebody with like 5,000 pictures. How can you have 5,000 pictures? You know what I'm saying? How can you have five? There's nothing. There's nothing. Yeah, I said on Facebook, sometimes you'll see some of the posts and some of the asinine shit that people write. You be just compelled to respond just to shed clarity. But then when I feel myself like that, I do the opposite. I don't. Because that's what they're there to do. They're there to goad it based upon the ego demon that's attracted to.
Like there's different tiers. One more, please.
This is what it is, you know. But regardless of what, this is how it kind of goes down, you know. So I just want to be clear in the fact that the astronomical things that you'll start to feel, you got to start to monitor yourself. Start to look into yourself, how you feel when you go into your meditations. If there's no type of helicopters and no sounds and nothing, and as soon as you start your meditation, you start to hear a helicopter or whatever, try to do the knowledge to the helicopter, man. See if it's a black one, or see if it's one that's a commercial joint with a number on it. If there's a number on the bottom of it, write it down. Research it. Find out whose helicopter that is. I'm telling you, man. You got to start to do the diligence on you because we are all under surveillance. Everyone. Everyone, son. But nowadays, they don't have to do the aggressive type of eagle-eye shit that they was doing before, just due to the fact that they got these social engineering networks that basically create thought programs and profiles based upon the things that you post. They have created an entire workup of everybody on Facebook. It's so ill with the Facebook shit now that they are creating phones that actually have the Facebook button in the actual phone. So it used to be you would have to go onto the net, click on the Facebook, and then go on it. This phone got a Facebook button on it, which means that pretty soon all your phones will have those type of social buttons on it. And these buttons will replace keyboard buttons in the sense of, you know, like you typing shit in or whatever. No, each one, you'll have a YouTube button, you'll have a Facebook button, you'll have a Twitter button, you'll have a NASDAQ button, you'll have every button, and each button will take you right into the server site, and you don't have to do nothing. So you see how they use luxury as a means to lull you to sleep? They rock you to sleep by using luxury. Oh, it's too difficult to sit there and wash your dishes, so let's make a dishwasher. Oh, it's too much to sit there and actually dial a phone or whatever. So, you know, we'll create a wireless jack. You know what I mean? The more and more they create these little technological pseudo advances, which are really equate to toys. The technology that they're giving us, or they're giving the mainstream people in the Apple Store, all that shit is just toys. The Apple Store is like Toys R Us. Now, this is not to say you can't take those components if you know how to flip shit and turn it into something that works. Like taking the wires out the iPad and then the wires and then this and then recreating some shit, you could do that. But in terms of the shit that they actually give you that's specifically scientific, moving you to the forward, it's all based on leisure. It's not based on intelligence. And leisure is synonymous with laziness. So they like to make it seem like black people born in America is lazy. That's not true. Black people in America are just tired of working and not seeing no return for the shit that they do. And those black people who don't feel like that are usually those black people who've come up in a certain way. So they already in a certain middle class or so-called tax bracket, which means that they have shit to lose, you understand? And when you have something to lose in this society, you will fight for the society, you understand? They had a brother who's so disenfranchised with it, they try to sentence this young brother to jail or whatever. This dude pulled out his joint and pissed right in the the wastebasket in front of the judge while he was giving him the sentence. This is what's happening. You get to the point where these children are not, they don't even care. They don't even care, son. They don't even care. Jail, they don't care. So now that they're seeing that that's not even having the effect that they want anymore, now they're trying to privatize more jails. They selling stock in jail. Okay? So as these things are progressing, we need to be real and pay attention to what it is we're dealing with and what potentially we can manifest from the situation. So there are a lot of movies now, and the theme in these movies is that you are meeting the alternate versions of yourself. This is what the Vesica Pisces represents, the merging of two realities, and the reality or the space in the middle of the realities is what functions as the real reality. The two on the opposite side, you can give them the pink thing if you want to. The two realities function on either side then represent the illusions of the hologram. So as we are moving further into Universe B, the real universe, Universe A, the petty universe, is weeding itself out. And those apparitions and those things that are attached to it are also going that way. So this is why you have a movie called Another Earth coming out. You have movies like Face Off coming back in the days. Any movie where there's a double entendre, where there's double meanings in it, a Janus type of theme. This is all about getting you and training your consciousness to start to accept the fact that you are about to go through a metamorphosis, and on the other side of that is the potential real you. So one thing that we can do as original people to start to prepare ourselves for that is do an exercise referred to as the elevator. Now, you've seen this in the movie Vanilla Sky towards the end. And what this basically means is that you have to visualize yourself. Visualization is a powerful mechanism, son. Very powerful, and it's very powerful when you've been activated pineally. You know what I'm saying? Meaning that when you are conscious of the fact of what your pineal gland does. Because then what happens is that everything that happens to you then is a symbolic aspect that goes filtered through the pineal gland. So in this exercise, you're going to meet your etheric self, your higher self, okay, the real you. So in this visualization, what you would envision is yourself walking into an elevator. Now, with the elevator, you want to make sure that it's gold, right? You know how some elevators you walk into, it looks gold, and some looks silver. Make sure that your elevator you go into is either silver or gold. And when you walk into this elevator and turn around to press the button, the buttons are either, some people, the buttons are going to be on the right side, buttons are going to be on the left side. Some people may have buttons on both sides. If you have buttons on both sides, that means that you have an aspect of unihemispheric thinking, which means that you have a predetermined ability to use both sides of your brain simultaneously in one. So in a situation like that, in any situation, however the buttons appear, you need to press the button at the very top. You're going to go to the top floor, okay? So if you see buttons on both sides, then you would press the same button on both sides at the same time with both your hands, with your left and your right. If you see the buttons on the left side, that means that you're more of a right brain person. If you see the buttons on the right side, then you're more a left brain person. But the gold represents the frequency. The elevator represents your ability to rise up the chakric ladder as well as the spinal column, up those 33 degrees, up those 33 lumbar, 32 lumbar, up to the 33rd. However many floors is in it, doesn't matter. The point, though, is that when you get into the elevator, the purpose that you're getting is to press the top button. Whatever number that is, try to remember the number. Now, as you are going up, try to observe what you see out the window, because what you're basically doing is the elevator is symbolically your the elevator symbolically represents your DNA lattice. You in the elevator represents the part of you that is seeking the connection with the higher you. You going up, however far it is you going into the pineal aspect through the DNA lattice, through a gold and silver frequency, which is an angelic frequency, which is an angelic frequency, meaning that it's an angular energy that you are using to propel yourself upward through the amount of Akashic records you've accumulated for your lifetime. When you reach the top and you open the door, know that when you step out, whatever you see is going to be the environment that the pineal gland exists within. So pay attention to the imagery as well. These are the things that they leave out of that shit. So they leave a lot of shit out. The imagery is just as important as you meeting yourself, because the imagery gives you greater insight. Sometimes you'll just get an image or an object. Whatever it is, when you open it up, when you open the door and you come out, let me just go through it. When you open the door's open and you step out, that first step that you take out, that's your best foot forward. This is you walking into the pineal area. So moving out to the colors, the space, see if it smells anything. But then if you see somebody or an object or something, whatever it is, work to have a working conversation with it. And basically talk to it the way you are meeting like a long-lost relative almost. And then you building with yourself in this, after you get what you need to get and you start to walk back towards the elevator, bring your higher self with you back into the elevator. When you get into the elevator with it and the doors close, get it to press the button to take you back down. Because what this will then do is unite the lower half to the upper half, but then the higher aspect of yourself is initiating the communication with the lower half of yourself and bringing you down. But in bringing you down, it's really solidifying a position for you to come right back up. Okay? The shit works, but you got to be prepared for what you see. Some people, the etheric self, you might look like a monster. If that's the case, then whatever it is, you need to embrace it, literally. Because in you physically doing that, this is both sides of you, the illusion self, the real self, merging. This is what was going on in the movie Tron 2, when he created Clue, who was a physical version of himself who represented Saturn in the matrix that he created, and he used him to create a perfect world. But the thing is, Clues could not rise above his primary function. So when he saw the real self, Jeff Bridges, doing shit that would in some way alter his prime directive, he had to then try to destroy Jeff Bridges. So the same thing applies to you and I when dealing with this aspect of reunification. This basically is like the ritual of reunifying the 14 pieces of Osar. Because 1 and 4 is 5, 5 is truth. Therefore, in you realizing the truth of yourself, you may have aspects of things that have been in you that may not be ready for you to associate with that. So these become the projection that the mind that is connected to the ego that may be infected by these malefic alien entities that they transfer to us through these different mediums. You got to watch out. You may have to slay those, or you and your higher self may have to slay them together, just like in a movie. These are the meditations that, or simulated representations and exercises that they do, that the enemy is constantly doing and using your money to pay for them. So we got to be aware. Something else I want to hold on to. Oh yeah, speaking of in China right now, a couple months ago, and it's just started happening again. The food thing in China is getting serious. They're not talking about it, but it's getting serious. And the fact that they've done so much, not Monsanto, but they have done so much. Because what the Chinese started doing, let me backtrack. After World War II, China basically reorganized itself in a communist thing. And they basically adopted an aspect of what Caucasian people refer to as white supremacy called communism. And the communism that they practice is based on old Africanism concepts that they learned from Pushkin and Gannibal when Russia was kind of going through its last stages as as an empire, per se. The Chinese basically followed suit with that, but then what they decided to do was use the energies as a means to create the new proto, let's say, Chinese person that would be in the future. If you look at Asian peoples from back in the days to now, you will see that they were a lot darker back then. This is because China has racial policies that basically say that ethnic groups can only live in certain areas. And when they don't, when they leave or whatever, you got to get permission, just like the whole 2 kids thing. That thing is coming back and biting them in the behind because they have a rash, they have an epidemic of suicides, specifically through women, due to such of the oppressive natures. But see, when we look at China, we're looking at China through the eyes of somebody who grew up in the United States. So culturally, there's certain idioms in it that we associate with China that are really things that the Chinese basically do here in America. Like Chinatown, for instance. There's a Chinatown in every planet, every country in the planet. You understand? Just like there's a ghetto on every country in the planet. But these Chinatowns started popping up after the years of isolation, after they came up in there during the Opium Wars, the British East India Company, and basically disassociated a lot of that. And so the British East India Company, the dragons in that, found out that through the Nazi thing, found out that a lot of the so-called Chinese elite were in actuality practicing Jews. And so in the process of that, they made certain agreements and alliances, case in point, the whole Hong Kong thing, in which the fighting tongs and stuff began to rise up almost as rebellious forces during the British occupation, but at the same time, they were also making alliances with them. And the British companies, the British East India Company, a.k.a. MI6 or MI5 or whatever, started using them to start to erode and break down the so-called Chinese governmental infrastructure from the inside, the same way that they did it in Japan with the Yakuza, the same way they did it with the Russian mob I was talking about earlier. This is what they use them for. So since the formation of CIA through OSS and through MI5, through the Malta Knights and the Jesuits, they were actually able to set up this network that we today refer to as the intelligence agency. And all the intelligence agencies, based on the fact that they all are occult agencies, they are the power base and create the parameters for the intermittent conflicts and wars that preoccupy the prefrontal lobe of most of the regular people in the world, which then cuts them off or makes them not focus so much on the spiritual aspect of themselves, which is what they really came here to do. Yet, because we incarnated here physically, means that we also chose to have a human experience. Therefore, to solely want to be totally spiritual is not correct. To solely be physical is not correct. To become the balance or the thesis, the antithesis, and the synthesis of both is what allows you to gain the enlightenment. So this is why you'll see people like Norman Rockefeller fund the Nazis, but then also create a philanthropic movement where he can send millions of people to college every year throughout the world, and him just using him or it as an example. This is them sitting in the middle pillar, doing something totally heinous and crazy, but then at the same time doing something allegedly to help and bring about a better so-called world. We do not have to be that extreme, yet the extremity comes when we feel imbalanced. So a symbol of imbalance or a symptom of being imbalanced is seeking to be, let's say, more positive, let's say, than somebody else, or more enlightened than somebody else. That shows an aspect of an inferiority complex based upon the individual feeling that somebody else is moving at a different pace. Yet and still there's nothing wrong with that. See, if we were all created equal, that means that we would be like the animal kingdom, and we will all be basically on a certain frequency where everybody would kind of like move in unison. There was a book I read a while ago called The Explorer Race. And there's one of these New Age writers or whatever who allegedly channeled this entity from the past, who basically told them about a story when we were like amphibian, like half amphibian or whatever. And in that, it would be a thing where, let's say one of us would come out of the water, sit on a rock, and then pretty soon you would just see like a stream of people sitting on a rock. Then like I would say hi, and then the next person who came out said hi, and then hi, and then hi, and then everybody say hi, hi, hi. And then I say something, and everybody else say something like that. That's everybody being equal. You understand? That's being equal in every aspect, which means that there's no individuality. And in some species, that's necessary. Yet our species is not. God, the Creator, is not equal to the devil. The devil could never be equal to the Creator. The only thing the truth cannot be is a lie. So therefore, we ascend based upon our own level of involvement in our own journey back to the all. Some of us deny what that is and keep coming back or whatever, and then some of us don't. Therefore, each one of us, in being equal, has to be equal within ourselves first in order for us to truly allow other people to come and go at the rate necessary for their own spiritual involvement and ascension. This society says that everybody got to be treated the same, yet and still they don't do that. Everybody is not treated the same. Everybody knows that certain people get preferential treatment than others. Khloe Kardashian, for instance, got in a car accident or whatever, was sentenced to jail, went through this whole big thing about it, wound up going to jail, got released 10 minutes later, picked up in a Benz and everything. T.I. go to jail, come out, but because he got received as a king, they wanted him to go back as a pauper. They wanted him to go back as the halfway house on a train with no money in his pocket. They wanted him to feel what it's like to be nothing again, even though he is a millionaire, and at the time he went to jail, he had the #1 movie in the country. But he put himself in that position based upon whatever malefic thing that he is beset upon that conspires against him and makes him feel like he got to keep going back to get tuned up. So therefore, a relationship is created with those two entities, him and them. But that relationship exists for us to peep, to know what not to do, and to see the pattern in the deterioration of the black man. That no matter how successful you are, they always want to try to put a label next to you. You know what I'm saying? So regardless of who or what, it can't just be that you're the greatest or something. You got to be the greatest, but then something got to be behind it. You know, Michael Jordan's a gambler. You know, Magic Johnson's the poster boy for AIDS, and you know, Eddie Murphy's into transsexuals, and Martin Lawrence, you know, that kid with the gun, and you know what I'm saying? Like everybody got to have some type of dirt on them for these people to interface with them. But that's only true in that sphere and realm of influence. If you have a bird's eye view of it, then you don't participate in it the same way that people that are knee-deep in it are. Therefore, you are not equal. You know what I'm saying? The equality comes in the fact that we're all on the earth. But other than that, all bets is off. You strive to become equal at all points. If there's 8 points in the universal flag, then that means that to do that, you got to deal with Saturn, build and destroy, infinity, in order to be born. So the ramifications of this heavy elemental energy coming in the form of this herald of cosmic energy is just a physical representation of what's happening inside of us. There's an element inside of you. Elenin, Eli, extinction level event. Nin is the goddess. They're trying to say that it all came from this guy Leonid Elenin, or Leonid, or whatever his name is. But coincidentally, one interview I saw was one dude claiming to be the guy who discovered it, and in another interview I seen it was a whole nother guy who looked different, claiming to be the same dude, which then means that this thing was not discovered by them. They are just trying to claim it and use this obscure dude from nowhere, or dudes from nowhere, the same way they tried to do it with W.D. Ford. When you have Wally Ford and Wally Dodd and Wallace Ford and all of this other stuff. So they do that as a physical shell game to confuse the senses and consciousness to get you to not focus on what's really happening. So what's really happening is that inside of us, these things are changing. That's why the food don't taste as good as it used to. That's why you stay up longer. You know what I mean? You can't get everything done in one day. No matter how much you plan for something, it always goes the opposite direction, because everything is going into flux as we pass before this grand event horizon. As it erupts in us, there has to be something physically outside of us that brings it home on all levels. So that's why this thing is happening. But this is just the herald for the Red Kachina, or what people are calling the Boo, or Planet X, which is when a lot of these devils are going to try to jump off and go home. So when we talk about these gray aliens or these pseudo-reptilians or whatever, we're talking about the same thing. We're talking about a race of non-physical yet physical interdimensional apparitions that exist to keep higher life forms from ascending due to their deviant and degenerated nature, due to excessive cloning and technological insanity. So they only have chosen Caucasian people specifically as means of hosts and channels and stuff like that, specifically just due to the fact of they don't have the pineal function that we do. So from birth through prenatal socialization, it's easier for them to attach these worm-like entities into them. If you go to my Facebook page, Aseer Ali Cordova, you'll see we have a graph or exhibit of what these things look like, of which they just came out the other day, in which I was able to get the image to show, that they found this new life form that doesn't exist anywhere on the planet, and it's so different and all this other stuff, but that's what these things are. So these things, the aliens that we're talking about, are more in infancy and expression like the aliens in that movie Invasion with Nicole Kidman, more than the physical type aliens that you'll see in Battle LA. Those things are the hybridized technological stuff that they've been cooking up to help fake, some type of alien attack or some shit later, just due to the fact that they'll use the astronomical events that we'll be experiencing as a vehicle to couch their agenda, so they'll capitalize on it. So they can't really affect anything. So what they do is they wait for something real to happen and then piggyback on top of that. But while they're waiting for something to happen, they're setting up and working different programs throughout the world to try to consolidate and prepare for what they know is the inevitable. So, like the Denver airport, they got ovens under it, and it's not built to be an airport. It's built to house people and process people, of which certain royalty, the Queen and William and Kate that have bought property in the area and stuff, you can Google that online, peep that. And, this is what they do. So while all that's going on, inside of us is all of this awakening stuff that happens through the RNA, due to the fact that the RNA is the ribonucleic acid, again, or RIB, or ribosome, that activates the deoxynucleic acid, which is the plasma and physical matter, physical matter, and then plasma, which is the fourth state of matter. Because plasma is liquid, gas, solid, and liquid, gas, solid, and it's like air all together. So pretty much they want to use the cataclysms as a means to, they know that a huge portion of them is going to go. So they want to have a certain portion of them sectioned off somewhere so that way they could restart and try to bag up anybody that's left, and then basically try to create some sort of breeding program or whatever to perpetuate their life. So the Georgia Guidestones and these things were all things that were done. So the whole Denver airport has something dedicated to the people in 2094. So 9 and 4 is 13, 13 and 2, it's 15. That's 6. That's knowledge equality. So then this is them trying to restart their history in the future and become equal with whoever exists then, because they want to be able, because they know they're going to die even when they set their stuff up again. So they want to have it so that way after they die again, whoever's left and picks up the society or whatever, the remnants of that, will be able to kind of pattern it off of how they left it. So this is why you see old white men in commercials doing hip-hop and stuff like that. This is why Eminem is the king of rap on Rolling Stone and nobody's saying nothing, because they're taking your place. They are becoming you. And you then have to be phased out. But when we say you, we're saying anyone who is socially aware of the militarization of amalgamation on media and entertainment. Like if you're a black man and black woman on TV, your love interest has to be a white man or a white woman. There's no question anymore. You know what I'm saying? And when you do see them, it's only in a comedy. It's never a drama, because comedies, again, are a form of physical entertainment, and they always want to keep you in a physical horse, speed, worker yak type capacity where you're pulling, dancing, doing something that doesn't equate intellectualism. This perpetually creates the stereotype that only certain black people are smart and stuff like that. And then black people themselves foster this amongst themselves, in which then he can now come in and say, oh, you being racist, or you being this, or you being that. And then because certain people are caught up in that, then they hook up with him against their brother or their sister or whatever. But he don't do that with you when you enter into its society. You come in from a subordinate position altogether, because you, as a 14th Amendment citizen, this is the first time in history that the term person was used to describe a corporate physical body. So as a 14th Amendment citizen, you are just a remnant of someone who was a free inhabitant. So you're not even really there. And that is how the malefic entities see us as individuals. They know that the creator, the divine force, is what's in us. Therefore, that's what's alive. This, what around us, is nothing more to them than, a wetsuit or, breakaway clothing. You know what I'm saying? So they don't see anything wrong with killing. And because, it's a mind thing and a non-physical thing, it festers over time and then creates what's called a psychic nest amongst the prefrontal lobe that then develops into subordinate realities and demons that we call cancer. So this is why at a certain time in history there was none of that. The most you had back in the days was sickle cell, and that was based upon the gene that was taken out during the Yakubian experiment that was put into them to allow them to accelerate and at least not burn up from the UV sunlight. We gave up an aspect of them. This is the rib again, being given over now to them to become more human. So they say, well, where's the books that say this, and where's the proof? And all the proof is in everything that's written, from prehistory to history to, let's say, from prehistory to history, everything is black. But then post-history or neoclassic history is when now everything becomes Renaissance. Reintroduced, reorganized, reconquered, revolution, re-evoluted. This is the cyclical nature of the fishbowl that we call physical reality that has become polluted by these entities that have been allowed to create ideas that create psychic nests in people that then possess people to do insane and crazy things. That is mind control at its best, because it is a mind control that is autoerotic. It's automated. Once it's implanted, it becomes the system, a true parasite. You see, but to break it down to such a subatomic level is considered today extreme or and somehow hating. You see? Yet I don't feel like I hate anybody. What I hate is what all of us have contributed to or not contributed to in how out of control it's gotten. So none of us are let's say, innocent in it. All we can strive to do is reestablish some sort of innocence by understanding and altering the physical makeup that was made up for us. When they created that birth certificate, they created a body model and everything. Just like with the Facebook shit. Now they've created a model, a physical, holographic, geometric, geodetic, illusionary image, three-dimensional image of you that is constantly being fed data by what it is you put into the Facebook. That's why Facebook will be the internet. Facebook is Skynet. It's the same thing. And therefore, when they start to upgrade every aspect of it like that, you won't have, like I said, the keyboard anymore. It'll just be the keyboard for YouTube, the keyboard for Facebook, the keyboard for this, because this makes it easier for them to identify the thoughts. And what this does to us is then organize our thoughts based upon the geometric shape, rectangle shape that they are giving us to express ourselves. Why not make the Apple computer in the shape of a pyramid or a triangle or a hexagon? Because those things would be empowering to you, to us. So instead they make them square because they got to stay on the square. When you look at the flag from Grenada from 1390, it's red, and then in the middle is the checkerboard. The reason why they have the checkerboard in the Masonic lodges as well as in the movies and everything else, and they use it in the programming, is because that's the only area of influence they have. Anywhere they step out of that, they step into what occultists would call the bleed, or the real world, where we really exist. And they can't. So this is not every Caucasian person in the world, every Jewish person in the world, every Russian person, or whatever European nationality in the world. This is the ones within their archetypical nation, state, country, kin, gender, country, at the whatever top or head that are all working with the other ones to engender their consciousness to look at the world a certain way. That always depicts us in a subordinate position. So how can we say that there is progress? How can you say that you have experienced it all because what, Oprah's a billionaire? What the hell does that, how does that help me? I know how Rockefeller being a billionaire helped his community. I know how Oppenheimer being a billionaire helped his community. When they wind up affecting our community, we wind up having to pay money back to them. When you join Skull and Bones, they give you a bump of cash, like, yo, $150,000 off the rip, without even graduating. You ain't even got to work. The work that you start doing is all of the shit to get ingrained in what intelligence agency they're gonna put you in, and what ritual you allowed to go to, and how much you're allowed to know, and whether or not they're gonna keep you as a long-term or immediate asset. Whether or not they're going to put you in a honeypot, or whether or not they're going to get a forever lock on you. That's why they call that tradecraft. That's these niggas be sitting with a diagram of you, of you, not a country, no, with you, figuring out how they're going to flip it on you. That's why they say the more you work to get your dollar, you got at least 2 or 3 other people working to take it from you. This is them. But when we say them or the proverbial they, we're talking about the aspect of us that has been affected by that sphere of influence. You see what I'm saying? Because they don't really exist. None of it really exists. Therefore, they are nihilists. They are suicidal nihilists. They practice the art that they practice is to be able to be so the most devilish aspect of reality, but then to the public appear the opposite. That's the ritual. Like people are like, oh, well, you know, he's throwing up the horns and all of that. Yeah, that's satanic and all of that. They've been doing that. But before you notice them doing that, he was talking about all that other shit. He was talking about selling coke and flipping bitches and burning people and kidnapping babies and all this shit. He wasn't satanic with all of that. You know what I'm saying? Like that wasn't, it wasn't until, okay. So again, it's how you dictate your level of involvement. What you see is relevant more than what is relevant. Because what is relevant, everybody knows, but ain't nobody really trying to step up and really do it. Because everybody knows that's what it want. It want it to pop. It's doing this racial. It needs this race war shit. It needs a spark to be able to set it off before it actualizes. Because they don't really want to do any of the fake shit, but they know they got to do something. So all of the stuff with Libya, why Gaddafi is the new Saddam. See what I'm saying? Saddam is, Mubarak. Mubarak is the new Saddam. Saddam is the new, Ayatollah. Ahmadinejad. Ahmadinejad is the new Ayatollah. Ayatollah was the new Shah. The Shah was the, you see, it just keeps going back to the same manipulation. That's why they call it a forever lie. Because what they could bribe you with some small shit and then use that one bribe as a means to blackmail you to do mad other shit without giving you no bread later. They're diabolical. Dealing with diabolicalness. And they look like regular white guys with suits, just like you see Matthew McConaughey and these great white guys, all these chicks is swooning over and all these niggas. But you know the first movie that blew that nigga up was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Just like Batman, his first movie was American Psycho. Like, remember, the movie that you start in the game with is what you start doing from every movie after. Look at all the movies they did after that. It's a pattern in how these people operate and what level they rise to based upon the delta, beta, alpha, or theta situation they in. These are all mind-controlled people, not just through what we would perceive as mind control, basic, regular shit, but it's really the shit that they do to you when they don't even be around you is worse. Like, I know what it's like to get hit by one of them things. It smelled like gas. And it was like, oh, shit, am I sleepy? And I was like, nah, I'm just getting something to eat. But then I'm looking at the stove, it's not on. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm bugging. But I'm like, Selena, but, she was asleep. It was late. So he came in the room, laid out. I'm all laid out on the floor. Like, oh, shit, I don't know. And the next day, that van was gone. So I know. If nobody would ever say, oh, or whatever. That shit was real. That shit happened to me. And based on what I know, and based on what I know and deal with, that's how I know that what we deal with is real and it's true. The minute it becomes some like ego, like about me shit, is when we turn into some bullshit. Because it's really not. We are just all physical representations of ourselves living these lives simultaneously. And this was in Bushwick, where we lost a baby, blessed dead. But then also, there's a cult over there they call them the Yogi Bears, but it's actually a German parochial Orthodox pseudo camp that these German kids come from Norway and these crazy places and be in the hood, and they get black people and bring them into these places. And when I talk to these people who go to them, they say that they sit there and they watch films. So I already know. And they travel in these yellow vans, yellow fear, with Yogi Bear on it. But see, the bear is also a symbol for pedophiles internationally. The teddy bear. Google that. Google the what do they call it? The pedo bear, I think it's called. Teddy Ruxpin and stuff like that. The bear, they will use that. That whole furry shit, all of that was used to lure, and they were using the program children with when they was having sex with children in the pink room. This is all shit that they do, that they've been doing. You see? But it's not necessarily about even power anymore for them. They already got that. This is all they do. So you have to know that when you get in bed with them in any way, that potentially you leaving a place open for them to get with. So you got to be that much more on your game to bind them in. This is the sword that we put at the upper part of their head that they never reveal the secret. And you can do it without having to get into all the shit you can do and who you are and national and all that shit. Because in the end, they're going if they're going to try to test you with that, they're going to do that because that's what they do. Like, we can't look at them how we want or think they should be. We have to look at them exactly how they are. You can't get them to aspire to a high function when they don't have that function. That's why the 33 degree was given to the black man, or is the black man, because he has the high pineal function. The 32 is reserved for him, which is why he is frozen at 32 degrees based upon the 33 or 32 lumbar on the spine, which represent his evolution from monkey to man. This is the missing link that they are withholding from society, yet they show you every day in movies like Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I just saw on the world news the other yesterday, they had a pig that was born with a human head. But 2 weeks ago, I'm looking at a thing on the TV on the computer with Selena, and we're seeing a woman breastfeeding a pig and a monkey, which then is giving the monkey and the pig human DNA that's probably been already ultra-activated by whatever CNN or UN worker gave her the drink that she is now nourishing these pigs and these animals with. This is what they're doing. They're pairing humans with animals. They're trying to put cow, bovine DNA in milk to make you more passive. But there's some Indian groups who are okay with that due to the veneration of the cow. You see how crazy it is? So specifically speaking, it's gotten to a point of ultra hyperactivity, and this thing manifesting and coming through is now exacerbating the situation, in which there's not too much for them to do. So even the whole president thing is not even really, people not even give a damn about it. It's like it's not even, you know what I'm saying? Like people, it's mainly what they call mainstream America, which is just a code for white America. You see? So if it's white America, why not just say that? Because white America would then say that it was exclusive. But that's what they always did. But the thing is, they can be exclusive, but they don't want you to be exclusive. Like, if it was a thing where it was just white people had their own shit, just black people had their own shit, just Asian people had their own shit, just Mexican people had their own shit, and just whoever else had their own shit, and everybody was just doing their own shit. And then if they wanted to mess with each other, they didn't have to or could have or whatever, then it'd be good. But they don't want that. They want to be able to get into everybody else's stuff, but then keep their stuff secure and gated in a nice little gated community. You know what I'm saying? But the majority of the guns and the drugs come from the suburbs. Why? Because the fathers of a lot of these kids were government operatives, and they were just leaving this shit in the house. And the sons and these people who hated their fathers based on what they was doing and not doing with their mothers would then take that stuff and bring it to the ghetto cell to get money, get high, get drugs. This is what they do. This is how they raise their family. And it worked for them. But now that time is over. So instead of them trying to consolidate what they have, they want to still rape and kill and take everybody else's. So that means that everybody has to, what? Either rise up together, which nobody wants to do, or fend for themselves. Yet, to be that black and white with it, see, can be construed as extremism, or, well, there's no leeway. We're like, what do we? Yeah, but it's really down to that now. All the options are steadily ticking and dwindling down. So if you don't know yourself, it's best to start. So that exercise we talked about tonight would be great. You know, see who you meet. When you wake up, try to draw it. See if you feel different. Try to do something, you know, you don't think you could do. You never know. You know? And if it doesn't happen the first night, keep doing it. You'll get it. You'll get it. You just got to be ready for what you get. You know? This is the hard stuff. We still working on it. Training yourself how to almost disassociate, but then gather at the same time. Like it's ill. So, you know, with these people, they have training where they put them through this, but all that training, you know, is all satanic. You know what I'm saying? No matter how benign it seems, you know, it's satanic, man. Down to if one of them dudes give you a scotch and it's Glenlivet, you better make sure you know what year it is, because that may be a sign they trying to hit you. You know what I'm saying? Like they bug like that, but that's their thing. What I'm saying is that our thing is manifested to such a degree that the distance between it and us has already been transversed. So we have already achieved the level that we're supposed to get. We are just not fully aware of how to capitalize and harness that, because we are still beset on all of the things that are happening externally in the physical reality that's seeking to exist in its present form, which no matter how great, is going to be altered due to the fact that they are really not in control of anything. They are in control of what the Creator has allowed them to be controlled with. But again, they are not equal to the Creator. They are working to be the antithesis of it, yet they could never and will ever never be on that level. We, by the grace of God, have already been received into that and are that. Yet the false designations that we deal with when we down here, that is manipulated through the ego, allows this trichina worm to create a pseudo-consciousness and cohabitate in the prefrontal lobe exospiritually, meaning that it's there, but it's not physically there. So you can see it moving, but it's not moving the brain. It's physically gyrating in the frontal area, yet it's not physically attached. This physically was seen in the movie Aliens. Remember, it attaches itself to your face and it goes down your throat. So it covers your eyes, covers your nose, so you can't see nothing, you can't smell nothing, and your ears can't hear nothing, and you can't respond. But it germinates in the belly, which is the Virgo area, but then busts out through the fifth chakra, the chest. This thing is physically there, moving around, yet it's not physically exoplasmically attached to the flesh or the inner flesh. It's just vibrating at such a level that it's occupying the area and feeding on the ego and speaking and working through the ego and allowing the ego to allow you to be interested and invested in certain things and behaviors that you may not really be around if you weren't around people who were like that. Yet in an integrated society, you have to leave yourself open for everything and everybody. And if you say no, then, or establish a certain boundary, then you are in violation or can be seen as a separatist. That you are somehow excluding people. Yet, Wiz Khalifa the other day was in the store and they excluded selling him anything. And he's a millionaire. They don't care when it comes to you or us. It's war. It's open. But because you see on TV, you know, these interracial relationships and stuff like that, people feel like, it's progressive and it's just about love. It's not about anything else. And yeah, these things are happening, but they not really affecting you, and you not really doing any. They're not really coming at you and all of that. No, they're coming at all of us every hour of every day, every second. Do you understand? Every second. So the only way that you can really deflect it is by raising your vibration to or above 435 megahertz, which is enhancing your consciousness. Yet the more you enhance your consciousness, the more you have to guard your consciousness from what it is you are reading and entertaining, due to the fact that a lot of these books are written by people who work in these or worked for these intelligence agencies and are putting what they call puzzle boxes inside some of the writings, or what Crowley called blinds in the writings, which then activate these things in you, which then gives you a certain monicum to get involved with certain occult things that you may not really, on the other hand, may really have been a part of or may not be ready to know. You understand? And there's a lot, People have gone mad reading certain books. People doing what they feel they need to do to get ahead, and there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong with that is that there's so many sharks swimming in the pool, is that you have to, discern, which one is which and how you or what you're going to participate in. And know that it's okay not to participate in something, and remember how it was when you was a kid. Look at some of the situations sometimes that you'll get into with certain people, be talking about this stuff, and it almost boils down to that, almost like a peer pressure thing, like, well, you ain't doing this now, or you ain't doing, like, you got to do things, or you got to do this with me, or whatever. You got to do things at the level that you're ready to do them, and don't feel pressured into doing anything you're not ready to do in any arena, from anybody at any age. It's more important that you unify the temple within self than go to a temple of a bunch of people that you really wouldn't be around in any other vein of society. That says something. That means that certain things are for certain things. I don't try to use a cup as a table. I don't try to use a book as a table. I don't, or to book as toilet tissue, right? I use toilet tissue with toilet tissue. I don't use book paper for that. So everything in the world has its place. So as there's chaos, there's order. These words work, cohabitate together in what we call matter. So as we move into the fourth state of matter, in which the plasmic aspect of ourselves activates the plasma, is what will allow us to activate the super spiritual part of ourselves and allow us to feel more united and at one with the things around us, which is what this blue Kachina is supposed to be bringing through. This whole blue Kachina thing was brought up through the Hopi people, but it was interpreted by a white archaeologist. And I say white archaeologists because all archaeologists take an oath. The same way doctors and lawyers take oaths, they take oaths too. And those oaths is to maintain and produce artifacts to bring to museums, which are crypts to house the bones of your ancestors and mine. And this is why they do the things they do, because this is how they maintain it. They are our undertakers. This place is a mental and spiritual graveyard, yet it is beautiful in its natural sense. So the more spiritual you get, the more natural things you want around you. So this is why they want to buy up all the seeds, and do the things they do. So what we have to do is continue to participate, I think, in ways to empower ourselves from the soul out, and in that, I think that will unify us in what we need to do enough externally together. But I don't think we're going to be able to do that if you're fighting for your freedom, but deep down you really hate yourself. or you're fighting for your freedom, but deep down you hate your mother. You know, or deep you're fighting for your freedom, or you hate the white man. Right? The freedom is the point. So you got to love freedom so much that that's the point. You want it regardless of who or what. So if it's a black man in charge, a white man in charge, a yellow man in charge, a red man in charge, a purple man in charge, a gray, a red, whatever it is, if they are blocking you from your sovereignty, you go out and get it. But to get it, you got to be unified in yourself to know what you need to do. So anybody wants to holler at us for tarot readings, lectures, bookings, you can check us out at houseofl@hotmail.com, or you can go to www.aseer.thedukeoftears.com. You can also go to, Tears is TIERS. Please share the show with anybody or everybody. Thank you for coming in. Also, you can check out www.sagasod.com. Also, check out, I forgot. But in that, thank you guys for coming through, and inshallah, we'll see you on Monday. Peace.